Hello, friends. Today we'll discuss a very interesting topic, debt and the psychological relationships between people. Imagine your current budget is $1,000 a month. Imagine a friend who's never let you down comes to visit. You know them well as a decent person, you've interacted with them many times, and everything has always been successful. And then your friend suddenly asks you to lend them $500 for a month. The question is, how much will you lend them? And under what conditions? Think carefully. How much can you lend a friend? And let's consider why we lose money when we lend money and why we sometimes turn such friends down. We do this not because our friend has suddenly turned into a dishonest person, but because life is much more complicated than it seems at first glance. And now imagine that the same friend turns to you and asks you to lend him those same $500, because he urgently needs to buy an expensive medicine for his child. He told you that his child is now in intensive care in serious condition and he urgently needed this amount. And you will not lend him now, knowing all this? Of course, you will lend him. You will think, I need to help out, well, after all, I have a whole $1,000, that it is difficult for me to help out my friend, giving half of the available amount. Moreover, he is not lying, he really needs the money urgently. Imagine that you come to him in a month to pick up, as agreed, your $500, and he says, buddy, the child was scheduled for an operation, now I need another $10,000. Tell me, will you be able to ask for your $500? In fact, integrity has no meaning here. A friend didn't let you down, he doesn't refuse the debt, but you yourself felt ashamed to ask for your own money back. Integrity misleads us. One of my relatives once asked me to help him, to give him the opportunity to rent my apartment. But he was very surprised why I refused him, because the apartment was really rented out long-term. It is very difficult to explain my position, why it is easier for me to refuse than to then collect rent every month from my close relative, from a person to whom I have an emotional attachment. He could not understand that it would be me who would feel uncomfortable, not him. He is certainly a decent person, but you can't do business with close relatives. It will ruin your relationship. Commodity money relations in the family are unacceptable, this inevitably gives rise to hatred, omissions, distortions of relationships. Therefore, it is better to refuse outright than to give in to such a request. Distortions associated with commodity money relations interfere with personal relationships. A tenant-landlord-client system is emerging, which is unacceptable with close relatives and friends. A decent person is one who has no right to ask and at the same time no right to refuse. These are very subtle matters. Imagine that you are engaged in trade, for example, at the city market. And an old colleague of yours, a fellow trader, comes to you. And he says, listen, we've known each other for over 10 years, I've never let you down, we've worked together and come to each other's rescue more than once. I've got a business idea, now somewhere abroad, in China, such a good product has appeared, I need a loan of $10,000. You seem to be confident in this person. You lend him money, everything goes well, the product sells well. And then the day has almost arrived when, according to the contract, the money was supposed to be returned to you. And suddenly your friend gets into a car accident on the highway and dies. Did he deceive you? No. He simply didn't live to see the moment when he was supposed to give you back all the money with interest. He didn't actually cheat you, but you, the creditor, have big problems getting your money back. Or another story, your friend was sent to prison for some reason, or he got stuck with goods at the border. He doesn't refuse to pay you back. He says, when I get out of prison, I'll definitely pay everything back. Indeed, by formal standards he is a decent person, but the creditor has problems. So, friends, who is a truly decent person? This is the one who has no right to ask. You should borrow from a bank or somewhere else, from any other financial institution, but just not borrow such sums from your close relative or close friend. You, as a decent person, have no right to ask. And he, as a decent person, as a true friend, in turn, has no right to refuse. When you and I go, for example, to a pawn shop or take out a mortgage, for some reason they don't ask us whether you're a good person or a bad one. They always take collateral. Why? Because the lending business has existed for thousands of years, and people who approach finance professionally understand that no one can guarantee the future. We know a person is decent by how they've treated us in the past. They've always treated us well in the past, and we take them at their word. But the future, unfortunately, depends on more than just a person's words. A million different factors influence the future that awaits us in a week, a month, a year, 5 years from now. The goods could have burned down in a warehouse, the money could have been stolen, anything could happen. Pawn shops and banks understand this and prefer to take collateral, an apartment, a car, or something else of value, or involve guarantors, people who will be obligated to return the money if the borrower has any problems. The bank insures itself by calculating a safe payment and the total debt burden, the presence of dependents, and hundreds of other factors are taken into account. When we lend money to a friend or relative, however good or decent, we can't take into account every possible nuance of our future life. We hope that everything will turn out exactly as the person described it. Surely, among those watching this video, there are people whose friends borrowed money from you and still haven't paid it back. And what do you think, all these people were dishonest? No, they simply didn't know how their lives would change, the risks weren't calculated. So, you need to take collateral not because the person is bad, but because no one can guarantee the future. Hope for the best, of course, but prepare for the worst, always calculate negative scenarios. Everyone has heard the famous phrase, if you want to lose a friend, then lend him money. Why? After all, we think that we are doing a good deed for a friend, helping him. Why do we lose a friend? For the same reason that another saying goes, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. Imagine, you lend a close friend a small sum of money. Your friend is ashamed to look you in the eye, he avoids you, doesn't pick up the phone. He is ashamed even to meet you and look into your eyes, and he begins to avoid you. You have lost a friend. You will say that he is dishonest. Yes, from the outside it looks exactly like that. But even if your friend turns out to be dishonest, a fraud, he will never admit it. Everyone considers himself honest, decent, and tries to convince himself of this. He begins to convince himself that you are the bad person. Who is he in his own eyes after this? That's right, a dispenser of justice. You lend a friend some money, and he goes around telling everyone behind your back how bad and dishonest you are. A man goes around throwing mud at you in front of all your mutual friends. You're perplexed, how can this be? I solved his problems, I lent him the money, and now he's throwing mud at me behind my back for it. And why is he doing this? In fact, he needs this not because you are bad, but because he urgently needs to lull his own conscience. And he will discredit you until his conscience tells him, yes, indeed, he is a bad person, and you don't need to give money to bad people. He will sigh with relief and calm down, thank God that you don't have to give money. We have lost a friend again. Well, let's say you know everything, listen to this video and now you know that you can't give money to anyone without collateral. You took, for example, your friend or close relative's only apartment, where he and his young children live, as collateral. And then it happened that he cannot return the money to you on time. What will you do? Take away his apartment? Kick everyone out on the street? Of course not, because you are a conscientious person, a kind person. Then what was the point, tell me, in this collateral, since you still won't be able to collect it, your conscience will not allow you? Conclusion, you can't lend money to close relatives. It can only be given as a gift, given away free of charge. If you don't mind losing some insignificant amount, you can lend it. But nothing more. If with the help of such a small amount you manage to figure out who is in front of you, then thank God, so be it. The one who asks must feel and understand this, and not be a burden to a loved one. That is why they say, when you borrow, you take someone else's, and you will have to pay back what is yours. Inevitably, over time, the debtor begins to feel a slight feeling of hatred towards his creditor. A tenant, even if he is a decent and honest person, inevitably over the years begins to feel a slight feeling of hatred towards the landlord. That is why I refused to rent my apartment to a close brother-in-law, a relative. Out of the best intentions, so as not to lose a good relationship with him. Why deliberately and artificially introduce monetary and financial issues into family relationships? Perhaps the saying is right, if you want to lose a friend, lend him money. Money is power, it is authority. People are easily tested by money and power, it is a serious test. If you haven't been repaid, then this is a lesson for you, it should teach you something. The first thing this will teach you is that collateral or guarantees in the form of a surety were necessary. Losing money, including in investments, should be viewed as a lesson. Thank you for teaching me, even through your own mistakes, that I will be smarter in the future. Thanks to my friend, because of him I only lost $500, and not $50,000 a few years later, the next time I decided to lend someone money. Friends, all this applies to investment instruments, securities, and bonds. Using simple examples, I tried to demonstrate human psychology and the principles of risk calculation when investing in debt market instruments. It is better to learn from others than from your own mistakes. Thank you for your attention. Subscribe to the channel. And until next time.